We are live.
Good.
Oh, it just came up on the website. It's being live streamed.
Yes, it does now. Okay. So we start with the declaration as to the situation under which this meeting is being held.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to explain to everybody who's watching, as we do with these meetings, because the Government's Emergency Coronavirus Act, when it was extended, didn't include the lawful ability for councils to make decisions in remote meetings. This council, when it could make decisions in remote meetings, resolved for the acting clerk or clerk to have delegated powers to make decisions. Any decisions councils come to at these meetings are recommendations, not resolutions, and those recommendations guide the work and the decisions of the clerk. However, in this particular case of grants, because it's usually involving a substantial amount of money, as we did last time, all the recommendations from this meeting will be on the agenda of full council for full council to make final resolutions. So this committee is a little bit different to others because it's partnerships, it's other organisations, and it's sometimes considerable amounts of money. So anything that's recommended in this meeting will be a resolution on the agenda for full council on the 25th of October.
Thank you.
Peter's here.
Here he is.
On apologies, Mr. Chair, we have Councillor David Boynton.
Right, very good. So,
And if you want to lead on declarations, Mr.
yes,
Chair.
declarations. Any declarations of interest? Linda.
Yes, Mr. Chair, applicant 6B, stage 4 Beverley. I'm a volunteer with stage for Beverley.
Okay, so you're declaring that as a matter of interest, but not preventing you actually from voting because you've not got a personal financial interest. Ian.
I don't think there's anything on about Beverley FM, but I volunteer in the same capacity as Linda. I don't think there's anything at all, but I have previously declared it.
No, that's fine.
Right. Peter.
Yes, Chair, non-pecuniary interest with the Beverley Barge Preservation Society, as I was one of the founders of it.
Right. Oh, okay. So once again, not preventing you from voting.
Yeah. Any dispensations, Mr. Chair? I don't think there are. Cause we don't,
not that I've heard of.
No, we'd have to do them in writing, as we discovered a few months ago anyway, so we
Right.
don't have any. The next item, Mr. Chair, is because I'm just supporting the chair because he's got an old copy of the agenda. So Councillor Mr. aware is to promote grants, to consider communication with past recipients who have yet to apply for small and general grants this year.
I was just suggesting that as we have made fairly generous provision for giving grants this year, in view of the COVID crisis and the fact that there may be many small organizations in the town which are running short of cash because of a year in which they haven't been operating normally, that we actively promote the requests for the grants at an appropriate point. And we'll leave that to Matt to decide.
Yeah, what we can do is we can look at past applicants who've been successful, who haven't applied this year, and contact them. We can also do a press release. I've just scheduled in today the next deadlines. The deadline for general and small grants is the 12th of January 2022. So we'll be doing a press release in late November to promote that as well.
Very good. Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just going to ask, could you update us, please, Matt, on how much money we've still got left in the grants pot?
Not on the top of my head, but it's a considerable amount. We've hardly had any small and general grants. They've mainly been partnership grants. What I'll summarise that for councillors and get Carol to pull out the amount after this meeting. But I know the total amount that's been applied for tonight, we're well within the ability to pay.
I think that in fact, if we pay out what is being asked for tonight, we will still have something like £30,000 left, which we are able to dispense.
Yeah.
But that's guesswork off the top of my head.
Well, my point there, David, was that you're right in what you're saying, and there will be some organisations which will be financially struggling. I could name some, but I won't do here. But we need to sort of somehow communicate that we are in a position potentially to support them so long as they meet the criteria. And I see Linda's nodding her head in agreement with that. And I think Linda will have a better view of organisations because she's in touch as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Linda.
Chloe was first, but I'm just wondering if perhaps at the end of this meeting we could have a bit of a brainstorm as to those organisers. I know we've got a session on the partnership grants, but if you remember what we did last year and we were budget setting, we set an amount, but we also set a further amount from reserves that could be used. So perhaps at the end of this we could have a collective brainstorm as to those organisations who haven't applied or who could apply from a different pot for a different reason, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
Would that be agreed?
Chloe, I'm sorry to have missed you. Your hand didn't stand out against the background.
I'll give way to the town clerk because I think he just had a point to make.
Yeah, there are no additional reserves. As we discussed at Policy and Finance, everything has been allocated. The amount that you're currently with, I found the amount regarding grants, we're 31% spent. So with so there's still we've spent 10,125 out of a 32,500 allocation. So there's still £22,375 unallocated before tonight's meeting.
So that would leave more than half, even if we grant everything that's asked for tonight.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, and then if after the next grants meeting, which is the final one of the year, which is in late January, anything that's remaining of that budget pot, the next Policy and Finance Committee can look at redistributing either to another budget line or ring fencing as allocation for next year's grants.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, the point that I was going to make was actually about whether in that budget have we factored in as if out of that we had to pay all 3 years, because I'm thinking now that we're not looking at reserves, it might be something we want to bear in the back of our minds is does out of that budget we need to take further years out in future, given that we won't be able to pull from reserves.
If I could just, Mr. Chair, because this, so on one hand, so for this item, I could contact people, other applicants we definitely had. We've got the contact details on record. I can do the press release, and councillors are going to brainstorm some ideas as to potential charities for the promotion. Item 5 is partnership grant review. That's to consider potentially limiting the number of partnership grants, because as Councillor Hopkins says, if, for example, 10 people this year, we allocate, these are just ballpark figures to make it easy for my simple brain. If we've got 10 applicants being made partners, and each asks for £1,000 each year for the 3 years, in this year that 10 is £10,000. That's also committing us to £10,000 next year and the year after, before even considering any new partners. So it will exponentially rise and the council needs to be aware of that, especially as when we're looking at budgets, because a lot of this year's budget came from reserves. That reserve is no longer there because it's been spent. So council need to look at how they're going to sustainably manage it. So that's why, leading on to item 5, it's for councillors to discuss limiting the number of partner grants. Currently there are 3, and there's 2 more on the table tonight, and there's at least 2 more that I know of that are intending to submit. So if I leave that with section item 5 now, to consider that matter of the number of partners.
Right, thank you, Matt. Anybody else? Right, I don't think we needed any motion on that. We've just agreed it, and Matt will action it.
So I can do 4, then item 5 is for councillors now to discuss the issue of number of partners.
Yes. Shall we deal with that now? Okay. It does seem to me that it probably makes sense that in this initial year we don't have more than a limited number of partners, partly because we need to get used to how it works. Chloe.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think I'm generally in favour of limiting the number of partners that we have overall. I think it's difficult because we can think of so many worthy groups, but it is a case of keeping ourselves in budget. And also, as I was sort of noting earlier, we need to anticipate that as long as the reviews go well each year, we are committed to 3 years worth of spend. So 3 times what we've already agreed. And as Matt says, that creates the potential for almost exponential growth if we don't put some kind of a limit on. My feeling is that I think we need to have a sense of the full budget to think about exactly what we would limit it to. So I think that comes up in the budget discussions, because what we'll probably be wanting to think is that we plan in the budget for 3 years.
I think Councillor Hopkins may be having connectivity issues.
Yeah,
Oh, right. I thought it was me.
No, I did say we'd had a busy day at work, so she's obviously very fatigued.
She's frozen in a praying motion.
In fact, Councillor Hopkins, you froze for about 45 seconds.
Yes, I'm not sure at which point I was making, but I think I just wanted to finish on saying that I think if we're potentially looking at 7, probably just instinctively say we definitely want a cap of 10. So not 100% sure about 7, given that we're asking councillors.
You're losing again.
Yeah, you keep turning to Sparky's magic piano.
I think if you can just summarise, Councillor Hopkins, because you were fading in and out, that you suggested looking at a maximum of 7 in the first year and a maximum of 10 overall.
Can I make a comment on that? The having 10 is that if each of them ask for the maximum, that's £30,000 a year, which doesn't really leave us much for small grants and general grants. So yes. I think we've got to assume that each is going to ask for the maximum, because that seems, although that's not happening at the moment, which is great, perhaps we just need to think about a more reasonable figure. I mean, I was going to suggest 8, so kind of between 7 and 10, I suppose, but I think 10 is probably a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. I think we should also make the point to some of these applicants that if they choose to apply for more than 2,000, that may limit our ability to make them partners.
Mr. Chair, is it possible this work could be done between now and the next meeting then? So we can we know what budgets we're talking about. the learned clerk is able to communicate with other people.
Yeah, but by the next meeting, we will have to have submitted our precept demand to the East Riding, so so our budget will have been set by the next meeting.
Right. So that's clear.
I think, as Councillor said, if there's a maximum at any one time, then at the end of it, if for example in this financial year only 5 come forwards, and then 5 in the next financial year, at some point there's going to be a reduction. You'll have 10 in total, but 5 will have had 1 year more than the other. So when they finish, there'll be an opening for 5 more because it will rotate.
Yes. Ian.
Well, it's appropriate that we make it clear that we don't have limitless funds as well.
Yes.
And we clearly define the amount, be it 7, 6, 8 of organisations that we are able to support. But our funds aren't limitless. And, it's about certain members of their committees being on the ball to put their applications in.
I think we should recognise that we are able to say that we're willing to take you as partners, but we're not willing to give you more than £2,000 a year. Peter.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chair, in answer to Ian's question, we'll be, and I'm looking at Linda, I think we'll be discussing budgets in late November. So we will have an idea when we finalise the budget. Well, we'll have to have an idea of how much we're going to spend for grants, because the grants committee will be meeting after the budget has been set in January. So we'll all know, because we'll be part and parcel of the budget setting in November.
Linda.
I think we're getting hung up on money here, because not all will want £3,000. So this £2,000 is just an arbitrary figure. But the point is that if they are a partner, we're actually servicing them as a partner. We're working together. So it's not just about money. The whole idea of a partnership is that we are a partnership, and the ambassadors, the councillors that agree to work with those organisations are creating extra work for themselves as well. So if we've got 14 councillors at the moment, and we've got a couple of councillors who are very busy with work, who probably wouldn't want to be an ambassador. We've got the mayor who's extremely busy, who probably wouldn't want to be an ambassador at the moment. That leaves only a limited number of councillors who would be prepared to be ambassadors. So we've got to think about that as well as the monetary concerns. Yes. And then there's the responsibility of the office as well. For example, Beverley and Bloom wanted photocopying doing. That's an extra responsibility on our officers with time constraints. So that's why my suggestion was 8 at any one time. And if we only have 5 this year, then yeah, that's going to create capacity. We could always change it going forward, but that was my thinking.
I think you're right, Linda. And also we should realise that whereas if you're an ambassador to the Beverley Barge Preservation Society, that may involve 3 meetings a year and fairly brief reports back. If you're an ambassador to the Cherry Tree Centre, that may involve 10 meetings a year and fairly long reports back. I'm pulling that out of the air, but you'll get my point.
Yeah, if you could, Mr. Chair, it's also about the council not setting up false expectation, because we don't want people applying and going through the process of applying, then through no fault of their own, we're still saying, well, we can't accommodate you because we're at the capacity. That's why I think it's important for councillors to decide on a number, so then we can promote the fact that we have X number of positions still available.
Yes.
And after tonight, if you're going to go for 8, for example, if the two that are on to here tonight are successful, you've got 3 spaces. Which would then promote the fact that that he's been limited to 8 and there are 3 remaining, which would then create maybe a bit heightened competition and more qualitative information from the applicants. However, we can also encourage them to go for the 1 year. Councillor Horsley is correct in saying that if we got a partnership that the council wanted to support but didn't feel it should be a partnership, the council could say, we will allocate you a general grant.
Yes, but we could also say, we'll allocate you a partnership, but not at the figure that you've asked for.
But the thing with the partnership is it would have to be the same money every year. It could be that councillors decide that on this occasion we don't feel we can go into a partnership, but we like what you're doing, so we will give you a one-off general grant. And I think that's what we need to maybe promote more, the general and small grants, on the basis that the partnerships which are extra special are limited to are going to be limited to 8, of which there's only X number available still.
Right, it sounds fair enough. Are we going to make it 8 then? Can we make that a motion and vote on it?
Well, I
limit to 8. Linda seconds.
Sorry, who proposed? Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I proposed from the chair.
And we can promote it as such once we know after tonight how many there are remaining.
Yes.
Which leads us, Mr. Chair, on to tonight's applications. The first one is Beverley. Sorry.
Did we have a vote? I seconded it. Was there a vote?
I don't think we actually voted, but it was clear.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Shall we actually put our hands up?
I blinked. Sorry.
So item 6A is the Beverley Barge Preservation Society. They're applying for a partnership grant to ensure security of income in the medium term to enable the society to build longer term financial sustainability. 1,500 per year, that equates to 4,500 over the 3 years, and the powers and duties that could be granted under are through Charities Act 2011, Cooperation Between Charities, and Local Government Act 1972, Section 144, power to contribute to encouragement of tourism, which is to a greater extent what the Beverley Barge Preservation does.
Right.
Can I just say that Chloe had a hand up a minute ago?
Sorry.
So before we discuss this item,
yes. Well,
she's got technical problems at the moment.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to propose anyway at the moment is simply how we go through this application, and I think that it is probably best that we go through it systematically, looking at each of the aspects of the application before we come to a vote. Oh dear.
I think if we just
haven't we done that already by looking at the papers and the details?
Well, we have, provided that we have done so and that we're willing to, each of us, to comment where necessary. Firstly, it's a charity. Secondly, it's got a very full constitution approved by the charity commissioners. Thirdly, it's got insurance. I didn't look at the detail on that. I don't know whether anybody else did. Fourthly, it has a health and safety policy, but didn't actually tell us what it was. Fifthly, safeguarding. It has a fairly detailed safeguarding policy. Non-audited accounts. I think that there was a slight misunderstanding between us and the applicants. We did not mean, when we said audited accounts, that they should be audited in the technical sense of that term, where you actually pay an auditor. But they clearly had what in effect were, in our sense of the term, audited accounts.
I think if I could add, Mr. Chair, I think given the individuals involved as well and the documents that provided in the accounts, I think council would be satisfied in their financial viability and the financial management.
Well, they were filed with the Charity Commission, among other things. They also had a very good. They said they didn't say that they had an equal opportunities policy. I think they ought to have, but that's not going to, I think, block us at this stage. But we are going to say they need to have one. Chloe, you had something you wanted to say.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I was actually just inquiring if we were considering them one by one or all together in terms of the spend.
Go through one by one. I don't know whether we should leave the voting until we've talked about all three. Does anybody have a strong opinion on that?
You do have more than enough to cover all the applicants. So I know in past years we've had far more. The amount the applicants have applied for in total has been more than the allocation, where we've had to go down that route. But in this instance, that shouldn't be an issue. So you could consider each one individually. And then
I think we can do that. Okay.
Chair, I was going to suggest that I think, in view of what Matt has said and what we've all read, that we take them one at a time and vote on it and get that one out of the way.
Anne had something to say. Anne?
Do we need to appoint an ambassador for each organisation? In which case, obviously, it's going to be Peter because he's already involved, and that would solve that one.
You could argue exactly the opposite.
The ambassadors
should have somebody who is not already involved.
The ambassadors will be selected at full council because all councillors are there then, rather than only relying on this committee or putting someone into it who might not be able to. So that'll be for full council.
And Pete is already an ambassador.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The accounts were for a relatively low sum, only £4,000 or thereabouts. But clearly they are capable of spending them effectively year by year. They misunderstood the question about benefit. Benefit to the town, they explained very well. Promotion to beneficiaries, they totally misunderstood. But as they had talked elsewhere in their application about the benefit to beneficiaries, I don't think that need worry us too much. They took beneficiaries as being the Preservation Society and the council, whereas we meant, of course, the individuals who were helped in one way or another. I think they also probably underestimated the number who they could reasonably hope to have visiting the barge, have talks about the barge, etc. But if they say 300 plus, then that's fine by me. Any comments from others?
They're currently actively promoting, trying to get it out there and trying to work the barges. And given that the previous 12 months, they've not been able to run anything, so their enthusiasm remains, I think.
Yes, very good.
I think we should be asking them to confirm their equal opportunities policy, and also, although they're obviously spending a considerable amount of money on insurance, they haven't detailed what's covered with the insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that they should reconsider their insurance in case they ought to be spending on some aspects of insurance that aren't at present covered. Chloe.
I actually just had a query about the DBS checks, because I think on my notes I've made a note that they didn't check that they have those, but that they do some talks for children.
Yes.
So I just wondered if that's a case of they have some specific individuals who are able to work with children, or what the situation is with their. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if children are there with their families and in the care of a responsible guardian, it's a bit different. But just a bit of clarification, really.
I think we could add with DBS, because when I looked into it for the council, the advice I've been given is that councillors don't need to be DBS checked, because it's the way the DBS is now. It's about opportunity of being potentially alone with someone with a child who is vulnerable. Whereas situations like this, it would be a group of children brought in with family, with other people, so they may not have to be DBS checked, because it follows those lines.
Right. Okay. Ian.
the cost of DBS to a charity is minimal, and I think it should be a prerequisite.
For at least some people.
Yeah, for
then,
some of the people that deliver stuff, certainly.
Yeah. Peter.
Yeah, I agree regarding the DBS checks, but there may well be a perfectly good reason behind this, as Matt has already explained. You know, when I look at this, this application, they haven't asked the town council for a lot over the years, and I remember when I was involved as its founder, one of the founders, we got told by senior officers at East Riding, good luck, gentlemen, but we don't think it'd be a success. But yeah, we can help you in kind. And we managed to get Sintan brought back to its former glory and as it is now. And the success is not in so much as they're attracting people at Crane Wharf to have a look around. They're taking people on the Sun for trips up and down the river, and they're also going on the Humber. The success is the fact that they've had several young people being keen and interested, one of which, his name forgives me, he was very, very young, interested in Sintan, interested in everything it's had to offer. He was 16 when he got involved, and he's now a ship's architect for Dunstan's. A shipwright for Dunstan's. That in itself is a success, and it's also a big part in tourism on the Beck. And as Ian's rightly pointed out, they are promoting themselves. They've come on in leaps and bounds this last year. While they've had lockdown, they've done things on video, they've done things on the website. It's amazing what they can or cannot do. I think they can do more than what they can't do. And I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter. Anne wanted to speak, but maybe it's past.
No, it was just, I thought the DBS thing would be involved in there, would be part of their safeguarding policy.
To some extent it does, obviously, but can we say then that we, sorry, Linda?
Just I keep reading this, and Pete's just well, in fact, I went on a trip last Saturday on the 9th, all the way up to Struncheon Lock, which was fantastic. I had a lovely time. But there's kind of no mention about the fact that clearly the people who sail the vessels have to be appropriately ticketed. I can't find anything in this at all. Yeah. And obviously they are.
Yeah.
They have to be, but there's nothing about it in the actual application.
Yeah.
So there's loads about the charity, but nothing about qualifications.
Yeah.
Right. So Matt, would it be proper for us to say that we approve this with whatever sum we decide, that we approve it subject to having satisfactory replies with regard to insurance, DBS and ticketing?
Yes, because the recommendation is from this meeting is what will go to full council.
Full council.
It won't go straight to the applicants. The applicants will be informed next week of the process. A recommendation has been made to full council, but because it's only a recommendation, it's until full council decides on that. So I can put it in those wordings that, so on the provision that, and that was the equal opportunities DBS, to clarify the situation there. And sorry, what was the other one, Councillor Johnson, that you raised?
Ticketing.
Appropriate ticketing, sailing tickets, qualifications to actually sail the barges.
Thank you. When you said ticketing, did. I thought you meant a clippy, but I know what you mean now. Yeah, so I can. So the resolution for full council will, from what I'm gathering from the committee, is to recommend supporting the application on the provision of those 3 items being clarified, and councillors are recommending the full amount they're requesting.
Well, that was what the next question.
Can I just come back there, Chair?
Agreed on the on 1,500.
Chair, just before we take the vote, can I just say to you that I think Matt will find when he does check with the society that they will have insurance, the skippers will have tickets, and they will have a capacity for the sun and for the mermaid, because when you're taking boat trips and charging, you come under a different heading than East Riding. You come under the MCA, and they will have the correct tickets.
But we still need to ask.
Yes, we do need to ask.
They've got the right tickets, but it's not included in the application.
No.
In the partnership, we need to make that. So, for example, Alistair took us up to Struncheon Lock, but he can only go upriver. He can't go downriver because his ticket won't allow that. So, we just need that. I think that
for expediency. What I will do on Monday, because I'm not in work for the rest of the week after tonight, on Monday, I can email the applicant and say these are the provisions, in the hope of getting answers to those for full council. So that it doesn't have to go to full council for them to respond after full council. Right. Hopefully I can get the answers to report back to council based on those concerns.
Yeah.
Yes, good. We're agreed then, are we?
Yeah.
Right. Good. The second one is the stage for Beverley.
Stage 4 Beverley, asking for a partnership grant to support the annual festival of music, theatre, spoken word and comedy that takes place at East Riding Theatre. Again, they're not applied for the full amount, 1,750 per year. That totals 5,250. And if the council approved, that could fall under Local Government Act 72, section 145, to contribute to entertainment and the arts, and section 144 to contribute to the encouragement of tourism.
Right. Okay. They have a constitution, very detailed. They have DBS checks. They have insurance, public liability products, property damage, and ELI, whatever that is.
That's entertainment license.
Oh, entertainment license, right. Okay. They have non-audited accounts for £30,000, not for the most recent year, because that was a very peculiar year. They have health and safety, but they didn't detail it. They have safeguarding, which I think they detailed in considerable detail. They have equal opportunities, but they didn't detail it. One of the things that slightly worried me is they only had 2 signatories on their bank account. And one of those 2 signatories was Chris Wade, who can become involved in a situation where somebody asking money is involved with Chris in another way. So I think they really ought to have 3 signatories, and we might point that out to them. I don't know how you do that diplomatically, but you know, would no doubt know, Matt.
Rather than making a condition, it could just be the town council noted and recommends that they may want to consider increasing the number of signatories.
That's fair enough.
Well put.
Yes, the accounts had in fact been professionally accounted by TC Group, so I think we can rely on those. Safeguarding was very detailed and very clear. Equal opportunities also detailed and clear. Any other points? I think that this, again, Chloe?
If I may, Mr. Chair, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was missing something when I was going over the papers on this. Have they put their safeguarding policy in twice? Or is there a comparison? Or is this just my pack? I'm just, I was having a look earlier and
they haven't, I have. I mean,
no, it's fine. It's just as long as I wasn't trying to make a comparison, because to be honest, I couldn't see a difference.
Sorry, that was an accident. They all come through as individual PDFs, and then I compile them as one large PDF file. So I've accidentally put that one in twice.
All right.
Never have too many safeguarding facilities.
No, that's absolutely fine. I just wondered if it was something where there'd been a difference made, and I was going, I can't see it. But no, I would just echo that. I thought the safeguarding policy and the equal opportunities policy were pretty good.
They didn't have much about health and safety, which I was slightly worried about, but
if I could, Mr. Chair, a lot of the health and safety of this will probably be covered by the venue, because they're putting on the actual festival at the venue. So health and safety of the venue will be down to the venue itself.
Fair enough, yes. Okay, any other comments? Linda?
Yeah, I was just a bit confused about the directors. It says Matthew Child, appointed 22nd of August 2019, is not mentioned or doesn't sign the documentation. I'm wondering if they actually have used the wrong word there, whether they meant left or removed, whatever the effective word is for a director.
Well, they don't need to have every one of the directors as a signatory. We require 2 and preferably 3.
No, that was for the checks. That's not the list of directors.
Oh, right.
They're obliged to resign the directorship.
I think it means. It means resigned instead.
Is that page 53 of 115? Which page are we on, Councillor?
We are on. I'm just moving up and down here. Well, there's two places where it lists the directors. So one of the pages is page 57 of 115, or page 2 of their representation. Directors.
Yeah, so we have appointed on the 22nd of August Matthew Child and Gordon Meredith.
Yeah, further on, there's only 4 people who've actually signed it. Now, that's only a question. Should all 5 have signed it, or that's only a question?
I don't think we require more than 2 of them to sign it. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I think, Linda, you're referring to their own documents, aren't you, rather than the funding application itself?
Yes.
Right. Oh, you're right. Yes, fair.
Yeah, it looks like their constitution, they have directors 4 listed and 4 signed for, but then a couple of pages down in their sort of company information, they actually name 5, and it is Mr. Matthew Child who's gone missing.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily an issue, because it's on page 53 of 115. There's no missing, so there's no point where it's signed with then waiting for no signature there. It may be that their constitution just required 4 signatures of the 5. Yeah,
that's fine. Just a question.
Okay. So are there any provisions that we want to place other than the simple question as to whether they get the money? Nobody seems to have any particular suggestions. So
well, I think that what they want to do is they want to expand it, because it's extremely popular. And of course, one of the problems with, I know I'm a volunteer there, but one of the restrictions that they have is with the size of the venue that they're using at the moment. And during the summer, they used Tolgavel Church, which meant that they could have a greater capacity despite the COVID lockdown recommendations. but it was a sellout. You know, there was more people who wanted to go, and they think because this is held during the half-term February holiday usually, they think there's a lot of potential for making it bigger and better and getting more people involved and using other venues, etc. But they can't do that without a bit of help and a bit of cash, which is why they say they're very open and would appreciate any help the town council could give them, but not necessarily just cash.
Thank you, Linda. So are we saying yes, we'll give them what they're asking for?
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed?
Yeah.
That seems to be agreed unanimously.
And finally, councillors, it's a general grant application from Sheep Productions to support the first productions out of pandemic, specifically. While some of the productions aren't necessarily in Beverley, this funding would be to specifically support the Beverley performance of an original eco-friendly family musical, a mini critics club, 6 free workshops for 5 to 10-year-olds. They're seeking £1,980, and that would fall under Local Government Act 1972, power to contribute to entertainments and the arts, section 145.
Right. Okay. They have a constitution, they have DBS checks, they have insurance for public liability and employers. They have non-audited accounts. Again, this means that they have been audited by someone, but not by a fully paid auditor under all the rules. They have health and safety, very clear and detailed, including their legal obligations and response to likely emergencies. I thought that was a particularly well filled in part of the form. They have safeguarding, which again is clear, precise, detailed, with the legal obligations and process included. Again, really excellent. And they have a surprisingly large budget. 47,000 a year is typical, apparently. But they're doing quite a lot.
I think if I could say, councillors, because in the past, in past years, the council supported Sheep Productions. So to some degree, the technicality side of it regarding the policies, etc., the council have already been satisfied with. I think in this case, because it's looking to see whether the council support this specific application for what's actually been requested. I think is the bigger question with this, because the council have already been satisfied in the past with all the documents.
Yes.
So one of the things that we supported in the past was some work that they were doing with kids who had mental health issues. I went along to that. It was amazing, the confidence that they were able to give these young people, get them doing stuff that within the theatre that they had never been exposed to before, was absolutely incredible. And it was a real joy to see the way that they brought these kids out of their shells. And some of these kids were actually saying, oh, we want to go on and do more of this. So that was great news. I do think that this particular organisation, Annie and Alice, have a really good talent, not only for expression, but also for working with these kind of issues and with these kids, which is great. And if we can get more involved in the theatre and using their imaginations, then and being confident, then I think that's a fantastic thing to be supporting. Yes,
there was one thing that struck me, that is they have no equal opportunities policy. Now, I can understand that an organisation which is specifically to support women don't have an equal opportunities policy, but they're wrong, actually. Firstly, because equal opportunities doesn't just involve men and women. But secondly, because if on occasion they do employ a man or come into contact with a man in some way, they do need to have a policy saying that he's going to be treated fairly. So I think they ought to have an equal opportunities policy, though I accept that I don't think that would be a problem for us at this stage. It's just a comment that we ought to make.
Yep, fair enough.
Again, that could be done in the terms of, you know, the town council just comments that they may, because there wasn't one in the pack, if they don't have one, they may wish to look at producing one for the future, rather than making it it's a requirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments on this one? Chloe?
Yeah, just, I think it's, I mean, it's always a very good application. When we see something from Sheep Productions, they tend to go through them very thoroughly. I just, hang on, I had a note here. Is the same thing applying for them with the health and safety policy is you know, when they're talking about these visits for site managers and everything, I assume similar things apply about venue use, as we were talking about with stage 4. Is that correct?
I would think it is. Having been involved personally in the past with events where you get funding to put something on in someone else's venue, you've got to be, you know, you as the organizer, you know that they've got everything in place, but you, with health and safety, but you don't just have to submit that because the what you're asking money for isn't connected with your health and safety.
But they do in fact have a very clear and detailed health and safety statement.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think their thing is, I was just double checking because obviously everything that they've got is all about, you know, we'll follow the site instructions. I was just making sure that it'll be a case of the site will be the one that has a responsibility. I thought it was, but for my own clarification, yes.
Okay, are we going to approve this as requested or what? No, was Anne asking something?
No,
it's just voting. Okay, voting.
In order of hands, I saw going up to propose in a second. I've got Anne as a proposer and Peter's a second.
That's fine. Yeah.
Fine. And that was unanimous.
And that, Mr. Chair, concludes the meeting at 19:23. I will close the live stream so councillors can